welcome to The Lobby, GameSpot's weekly hangout every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific, right here on GameSpot.com or twitch.tv/GameSpot if you're watching live. Special thanks to all y'all listening to this on your podcast machines. Make sure you rate, subscribe, do all that stuff. I don't know what's going on. I'm sitting here on The Lobby set this week of all weeks, the 20th anniversary of GameSpot.com, sitting across the table from two people who are way cleverer than me at this. Mr. Peter Brown, reviews editor.
Hi.
And you're the person you are cosplaying as, presumably, Kevin Van Ord, the
Hello.
previous reviews editor here at GameSpot.com. You were just passing by the office today?
I was actually, yeah. Well, I mean, I was literally out walking, and I sent a text to Peter saying, saying, hey, so I got a new job, but I'm going to be leaving at some point, like to a faraway place.
Leaving.
Yeah, leaving. And I wanted to make sure to, things are really busy and hectic, and I wanted to stop by and just make sure that I got a chance to see GameSpot peeps before I suddenly just disappeared from the continent. And Peter's like, hey, while you're here, why don't you do this thing? And so I did the thing, and then
can you do my job for me for like 2 hours?
Sure. And then Danny's like, hey, can you stick around for the lobby? And it's like, I got anything else to do.
Yeah, the minute you leave here, there's going to be someone else roping you into something else.
Which is fine. I love being back. This is actually my first time since you've changed floors.
Right.
I've seen y'all, but I haven't been in the building.
Yeah,
since you moved.
July of last year.
Yeah, July of last year.
So, but I guess it's perfect you're here because we wanted to have a section about GameSpot's 20th birthday, and you've been here longer than most of us here. I think maybe
I was
Chris
here 9 years.
You out a little
Almost
bit?
9 years.
9 years, all right. So before we sort of get to the past, I want to talk a little bit about what you've been doing. What have you been doing since we've seen you last? Because you've got a whole new adventure coming up in the next couple of months.
But I already had adventures before that, yeah. So when I left GameSpot, I went to Trine Worlds. I was first working there on a game called Devilian, which I hope everybody plays. But we localized Devilian. We did not develop Devilian. We localized Devilian at Tryon, and so most of my job was spent writing, lots and lots of words.
Right.
And at that point, when that sort of finished, when that part of the localization finished, I moved over to the Atlas Reactor team as a designer, and so I did a lot of stuff on Atlas Reactor, which is awesome, and you should all play it when it's widely available. And hopefully, the people that played the free Steam weekend. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be pimping this.
No, shut away. I mean, presumably we're not paying you for coming on the lobby, so you.
No, I'm not being paid for being here. Are you kidding? So I did that, and then since then I've been working with an indie team, Cleaversoft. Right. And we are making a platformer with dragons called Earth Knight, which is also really great. But I have nothing more that I can really share about that since we don't have a release date. We don't have it's a Sony exclusive. I can say that much because we already know that it's a PS4 Vita game.
And what are you doing on that one?
I'm a designer.
Design. So how does that? Because I know obviously you were like a prolific writer here.
Yeah.
Like Peter can attest to the fact that when you're in your work position, you spend a lot of the time smashing on keyboards. So presumably it was like, oh, that's a good fit. You're going somewhere else to write about games. How did the shift into design happen, and what element of design are you working on? Because I'm completely ignorant of how this stuff works.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes into design, and so I'll give you an example on Atlas Reactor. When I was with Trine working on Atlas Reactors, that involved level design. So if you like the second map, I designed the second map. So that was great on Atlas Reactor. But I also did things like writing character scripts and voiceover sessions and doing things dealing with the progression scheme, things dealing with monetization that was apparently all thrown out the window since the game went to pay to play rather than free to play, and things like that. So that's sort of a jack of all trades.
Right.
On Atlas Reactor, Devilian was basically writing. For Cleaversoft, most of what I'm doing is also level design, which is a little bit different. It's a 2D game, a 2D platformer. So I spend a lot of days doing things like what some people do with like Super Mario Maker, is that I'm just basically taking all of our assets and tools and trying to keep them consistently fresh and interesting, and doing new things with the platforming is sort of what I'm doing right now.
After 9 years of writing about games, what's it like 9 months out of it doing all this crazy stuff?
Well, I mean, I miss you guys, but luckily I've had the chance to do some stuff here and there, and I'm even working on some stuff for Peter now. Sort of maybe my final hurrah. I don't know. Like I thought Journey would be the Journey on PS4 would be the last thing I ever wrote for GameSpot, and that got proven wrong real fast.
What did you follow that up with? What was the?
So a Bombshell was my first. My first review after that, and as you probably know, I disliked Bombshell with a great passion.
Yes.
So, but then I've gotten then to play I got to review Hyper Light Drifter, so I went straight from a 2 to a 9. Well, there was something in between. I forget what it was.
I never know, man.
Maybe there was something where it wasn't something in between. I don't know. But working on Witcher 3 Blood and Wine for you guys, as well as the Odin Sphere HD.
You reviewed Witcher 3 as well. Right?
I did review the original Witcher 3. It was my personal game of the year last year.
You were just handing out 10 out of 10s before you left.
Yeah, you know me. I mean, in the end, I guess I gave out 3 while I was at GameSpot.
Metal Gear Solid 4
Metal Gear
was
Solid
the other
4,
one?
Witcher
Wow.
3, and Journey on PS4, which in my mind is probably one of the most perfect games. I mean, if you think of a 10 as perfect, which I don't, but if you do think of a 10 as perfect, I think that's one of the most deserving games I can think of to be given a 10.
Our game of the year in 2012, and also Mary's favorite game of the past 20 years, as in one of our many features we put together this week on GameSpot, celebrating 20 years of the website. 20 years, a long time. We'll talk about what's coming up on your next adventure in a little bit, but let's get a little bit wide-eyed nostalgic a little bit here. Peter, when did you join GameSpot? Because for me, you've been here like forever. You're like part of the
As a
furniture.
staff member, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah. When did you first start writing about?
Well, for GameSpot, that was October 2011, maybe November. I was working as a cook in Texas, trying to get freelance writing as much as possible, and I got a job opened up for a job writing strategy guides at GameSpot. I lied about my address. I reached into my well of references, which was Curtis Said, who used to work here, who I had worked with at oneup.com back in the day, and spent all my money flying out here, and have since learned that I probably didn't have to lie about living in California. But
did you say like number 10 2nd Street, San Francisco?
I had a friend who was like, "Okay, man, yeah, you can use my address." But I mean, bottom line was I had lived here before Texas, and I could have come back, so I was well prepared for the journey, but not prepared for I think how big of an impact GameSpot has had on my life.
Right.
I worked at a place called oneup.com, which I'm sure a lot of people remember, and
just down the street here.
Yeah, literally like 2 blocks away. And that was a really special time for me, but nothing has really left its mark like GameSpot has on me. And people try, they talk about a work-life balance, and even like my close friends try to, persuade me to maybe work less, but I think they don't understand that like this is kind of like it's threaded into me now. Like GameSpot is my life, for better. I don't want to say for worse. I mean, sometimes it's a job and jobs are stressful, but GameSpot has been a positive force in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You feel like you've sort of got a lot of responsibility when you get your ticket on the plane. Kevin, you came from a sort of a similar place to me, but long before me. In fact, when you got hired, it made me feel a lot, sort of hopeful for my chances. You came from the community.
I did. I was a moderator for years on the GameSpot forums. And at some point I started just writing I was always writing reader reviews and things like that too, but I was a moderator on the forums for a while, and then I started writing for GameSpy, another place you might have heard about, along with OneUp. But I wasn't employed by GameSpy, but I freelanced for GameSpy in addition to doing writing for a site that now doesn't exist in the form that it used to. For free, just for the fun of it. And I got a call out of the blue from Jody Robinson, who was in community at the time, and there was this position for a tournament coordinator. And I was the first person they thought of. So it's not like I had applied for a position. I just got a call. And they said, "Hey, why don't you come out and interview for this position?" And I was like, "Okay." And so the company put me on a plane and brought me from where I was living at the time. I was living in Maryland and working in Virginia, and they flew me out for a job interview that didn't feel like a job interview at all. It felt like GameSpot trying to sell itself to me, which was the strangest thing. So I said, "Okay, I'll completely change my life, and I'll move to California." And I left life behind, and so that's what I did. And then 9 years later, I was still doing it, and I loved it. I mean, like Peter said, it's a job. It's not as but it's weird when sort of life and leisure intertwine, like work and leisure intertwine in the way that they can do in the games industry. But it was time. Sometimes you just have all this creativity and you realize it's time to use it in a new way.
Right.
And so that's kind of what I did. It wasn't really. It wasn't because I wanted to escape GameSpot or anything.
I mean, 9 years
it was just
is
time to. I wanted to do new things,
Hmm.
but I wanted them to be with games because I love games so much, and I wanted to put my money where my mouth was, and in a way, and say, hey, I can write about them, but let's see what happens when I make them now.
I mean, I feel like jumping into the sort of, into the unknown is something that if you were to ask, there's only three of us here, if you were to ask anyone who's outside, working on production or out on the floor, or even all the people who've left, in the past coming years, that's like sort of the ubiquitous tale, is like most of the people who work for this site, and even kind of when I think about IGN down the road, it tends to be people who have traveled far and sort of left everything and left all their family and people they knew before for like a brand new life. And I mean, it never kind of feels like you had any other choice to do it, because trying to break into this industry is like such a difficult, like so much of it involves time and place,
even
and
after
fortune.
you get in, man.
Yeah.
You take an opportunity where you can. There's no, when it comes up, you do it because you love it and because there's no guarantee that anything else is going to come up, and that happens on both sides of things. I mean, certainly in game development,
Right.
My time at Tryon was cut short for, by just the kinds of things that happen in the business of making games and the business of reporting on games. It's just that cycle. And so you take what you can when you can get it, if it's the right thing. I mean, there's certain things that I'm not going to do, but when these opportunities came up, it's like, yeah, you got to do it. Otherwise, I'm just going to be saying for the rest of the time, what would have happened if I hadn't? If only I had done it, I wonder what life would be. Well, now I get to know, and as it turns out, it's pretty great. So,
we got a bunch of lovely comments in here. Team Toaster saying Kevin's Assassin's Creed 1 review was the thing that made me follow GameSpot back in 2007.
wow, nobody ever said that about that review. People, that was one of my. So there's a long history, of course, of reviewers getting hatred from whatever.
No,
and yeah, who knew? But I mean, the earliest at GameSpot that really started happening was with the Command and Conquer 3 review, which
really?
Because it wasn't that long after Supreme Commander had come out,
Right.
and I scored Command and Conquer 3 higher than Jason Ocampo had scored
Supreme Commander 2?
Supreme Commander 1.
One, all right.
Yeah. And so that was kind of the first time I ever had people kind of whining at me for something. But Assassin's Creed is also another interesting one because, of course, I reviewed both that and the original Mass Effect, and I actually gave Assassin's Creed a higher score than I did the original Mass Effect. And that haunted me for quite a while. Obviously, I stand by that, and I still stand by Assassin's Creed 1 as still the Assassin's Creediest of Assassin's Creed, in the sense that it's the game when you're most like an assassin. So in that series, so yeah, I totally still love Assassin's Creed 1 to this day.
When you think about the sort of, I guess, before you worked here, what can you remember any like reviewers or shows or like any things you ever sort of read or watched on GameSpot before that made you interested to work on the site?
GameSpot was always kind of present as I like trolled the internet looking for things that magazines didn't provide to me,
Right.
like back during the days of dial-up.
Screenshots.
Yeah, but I think different from you guys, I wasn't really like a hardcore fan of the site when I showed up here. For whatever reason, I don't know. It's not like I didn't like the content, but I'm so focused, I think, on, at least in the past anyway, it's different now, but in the past I was so focused on like hyper like Japanese console games and stuff like that. And GameSpot always had it seemed to have the PC audience more in mind, the sort of more mature games. And that was all well and good, but it wasn't what I was looking for. But then when I got here, I was just like blown away by the character of everyone on the team, their skill, and how they made me think about games differently. I mean, I thought I knew things about games then, but it's incredible the amount I've learned since I began here. Yeah.
Was it you that sent me an email? Somebody sent me an email not so long ago about reviews and things on the site that I thought were interesting from the last 20 years because of course the anniversary was coming up. And
it might have been Rob.
And maybe it was Rob. And it was interesting. Like once I started going through all the things that made me love GameSpot before I'd even come here, I was really surprised, like not surprised, I guess, but I was just like, oh my God, I can't forget about this, but I also can't forget about this. And for me, Greg Kasavin was always, of course, the big gun when it came to sort of who I looked up to at GameSpot, because it was thoughtful, but it was also funny and nerdy and just sort of, I felt a connection with Greg in terms of what we liked and things like that. And, and I think it was things like Neverwinter Nights, his review of that. There was Andrew Park's hysterical Gods and Generals video review, which is still my favorite video review that exists. From GameSpot. Everybody looks to Big Rigs, and Alex review is a classic, but I really do think Andrew Park's Gods and Generals review, video review, is kind of stands on its own. But pretty much anything Greg did. But there's also a review that I don't think anybody even knows on the site that was one of the biggest for me, and that's Ryan Davis's Project Snowblind review. Right. That was, notwithstanding the fact that I had a huge crush on Ryan Davis for the longest time, that review was also one of my, and still is one of my favorites on GameSpot. And I don't think anybody even really knows that review. It almost seems like a lot of great words spent on a game that nobody thinks about anymore. But there's so much, all those, it was the people that I loved, and they seemed to be writing to tastes that I had. That was the reason, number one, why I wanted to be here. I never actually thought, you think, I'm thinking in 2002, wow, wouldn't it be neat if I worked at GameSpot? You don't think that 4 years later that thing is actually going to be happening.
Yeah. Do you remember like 3 or 4 years ago, you cracked some joke to me in the hallway about me having your job one day? I thought that was the most absurd notion.
No, I don't remember that.
You probably wouldn't, but at the time I was like, that's crazy.
But I said that to everybody. So it was probably a day where it's like, please, will somebody take this job? No, but I don't know. I forget what we're talking about. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to overwhelm the conversation.
No worries. No, I remember being back home and watching On the Spot in Ireland like 7 years ago, and to think that like so much of your life gets impacted by joining a place like this, it's really crazy. We're very, very lucky. Speaking of your admiration for Greg Kasavin, you have had a similar sort of post review
in a sense,
journalist life. Let's talk a bit about what you're doing next, because that's a bit that's a bit of a jump.
It is a bit of a jump. So it's been a little tough to make happen because, you'll see why in a second. So I'm joining Larian Studios, the people that make Divinity: Original Sin, the entire Divinity series. So if you know Divine Divinity and all games that came after that, then you know Larian Studios. So for me, it's a dream come true in a lot of ways. Number one is because Divinity: Original Sin was my game of the year that year.
Remember.
So and it's like, again, it's like the other thing where it's like you don't actually think. It's not like when that happened, it's like, oh, maybe someday I'll get to actually work with Larian Studios. You don't think that's going to happen, but it looks like as soon as I can get all the rest of the paperwork in order.
Yeah, because they're not in Sacramento, are they, Kevin?
No, they're in Belgium. So in about a month, I'll be moving to Ghent, Belgium, which will be really awesome, and it's very frightening. But I'm really excited to see what comes next, and they've been really good to me. The whole company just seems really great, and they've been really patient seeing if the paperwork happens. It's really hard as it happens to get, you got to get your work papers. You can't I can't just move to another country and say,
amen,
hello.
brother.
Which is it's how they say hello in Belgium actually is hello.
Yeah. No, you're not going
you
to.
you can't just show up and decide you're going to work. There's a lot of government rigmarole, and somebody on Twitter said to me that this is just to prepare me for how much Europeans love red tape.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So it looks like I'll be having some red tape.
Red tape
in the future
with your pommes frites.
Yeah, which is weird because now I'm moving to a land most well known for chocolate, waffles, and beer. Now that I'm vegetarian and
lost
not
all this
eating,
weight
and not eating things like that. So we'll see what happens. Although to be fair,
and beer.
And it's funny because I've never really been a drinker. So it's interesting though. Belgium, Ghent specifically has every Thursday is Vegetables Day,
really?
Vegetarian Day.
That's cool.
So everybody on Thursdays that lives in Ghent is inspired to eat their vegetables.
It's going to be all weird vegetables you're not used to, like Brussels sprouts and turnips, though.
Well, Brussels is there, so it makes sense that they would be into Brussels. Jeez, Danny, know your globe. But it'll be interesting, and learning Flemish. Basically funny Dutch. So that'll be fun. So there's just a lot of stuff to get ready for. I'm really excited, and I'm also terrified. Utterly terrified. I think I get what everybody would get to. It's like a huge change. What if something happens? What if I'm not good at it? What if what if I have a heart attack before I go and nothing ever, and I don't get to see it or get to do it or something like that? What if the plane crashes out of the sky and I don't get to have this amazing opportunity? It's like that's the way I think. That's just my brain, how weird my brain is. So, but yeah, that's kind of what's happening next. And, how long that lasts, I don't know. That's the fun thing about another terrifying thing about games making.
About life.
Is you don't know what happens. I mean, I had no idea how long I'd be at Tryon, but I was hoping it would be more than it was. And then again, this is a really financially strange industry. So you don't know what's going to happen, which is why I'm trying to connect myself also with as many side indie projects as I can, because they're on, you get to wear a lot of hats too with those kinds of things, and you get to be part of, you get to be a bigger part of the decision-making process and things like that with smaller projects. Not everybody gets to be like part of this core indie team that just go, not everybody gets to be Double Fine and just kind of move from one project to the next and just kind of be this awesome unit. There's a lot more flux typically. So anyway, that's what's coming next. So I'm excited. So Divinity Original Sin 2 10, yeah? Yeah.
No.
Collusion?
You can say it to me. I'm not on the reviews team.
Yeah, Collusion?
If I only review it if it's a Formula One game. So
I'm kidding, of course. I mean, one incredible secret that nobody talks about in the games industry is that game developers know pretty much how good their game is before anybody else gets their hands on it. So, and typically, not the case every time, but typically, I mean, that's just the way it is. So, I hope you all like Atlas Reactor too. I already know how much you like Devilian. So.
I hope to like every game. I mean, isn't that what we all hope for?
Yeah. I mean, you want every game to be awesome.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
That's the thing. Yeah. I want every game I make to be awesome.
We've had a bunch of really awesome ones this year already. And here's to some more.
This has been a fantastic year already, I think.
Good Doom and Uncharted and Overwatch today. Kevin, thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it. Nice to have a lovely chat about the history of, I guess, the sort of the past, the present, and the future. I mean, that's what websites are, right? It's just a bunch of people who are contributing in the best way they can, and
contributing.
They leave, and next people come in, and the wheel keeps on spinning. So, thank you so much. Really
Absolutely.
appreciate it. Peter Brown.
Hi.
We're going to ask you to stick around because you got Fallout. Kevin, you don't know much about Fallout at all, do you? You never play Fallout.
Says the man who reviewed Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas.
Have you had a chance to play Fallout 4? Considering you're working so much.
I did not. I got very close, but I did not beat Fallout 4. But honestly, part of that has to do with the fact that I don't like Fallout 4.
Oh, really? Too much of a shooter? Or?
It's too much of a shooter. I felt like a lot of choice has been taken away from me, and I have lots of niggles. I can't stand the way the dialogue and conversation systems work in Fallout 4, for example. So I have a lot of problems with the Fallout 4. But honestly, I can go back and play New Vegas with mods anytime I want. And so I get that. I can still have the Fallout experience that I love, and that's go back and play Fallout 2, or I can play Wasteland 2, which is also fantastic. So lots of things to do. If one game doesn't meet your needs, there are thousands of others.
Yeah, there are a bunch of them. Mr. Handler, you want to come in here and relieve Mr. Van Oort? Are you heading out right now then?
I don't know. What do you want me to do?
I don't know. If you're still here in 30 minutes,
I'll hang out
see you.
and hang out with people outside.
All right, cool.
And I guess Rob can take my place for now. He's much better looking anyway.
The chat all saying lots of good lucks and thanks for popping in.
Thanks. And seriously, I guess before I get off, I'm sorry, Rob. I know you're prettier than I am, but sometimes age before beauty. And but seriously, as much as I want to be fair to everybody out there, because I mentioned something about reviewers get hate a little while ago, but I also want to make sure that it's without you, I wouldn't get to do what I had gotten to do. And as much as it's going to be hard to like deal with kind of deluge of people that don't like you and say nasty things to you, I did it day in, day out because I loved it, and because I hoped that maybe somewhere out there, I could help other people love it too in a different way, or to start to appreciate games in a new way, in a thoughtful way. And over the years, I got a chance to grow in that respect because I was surrounded by writers that I admired and people that made me look at games in different ways than I had before. And I hope that I got the chance to do that for some people. And whether or not you liked what I had to say or not, I hope that whoever was out there knew that I did it with as much love and passion and certainly honesty, and it's easy to always, nowadays it's easy to just, journalists suck and, bias and so forth and so on. But, we do it because we love the games and because we really do have something to say and hope that what we have to say can have meaning for somebody. And hopefully in all of that, somebody out there, a few people out there found something in that.
You gave it to me, for sure.
I hope so.
You definitely did.
And that's all I really want in the end, is just for people to keep looking at games in new ways and to keep looking at that art form and saying, this is some of the things we've done and we've got a lot more awesome things to do.
Yeah, for sure. Here's to the future.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kev.
Rob,
all right,
come and take my place, you pretty-faced man.
On that note, come on, Kevin, getting in here and making us all well up.
Right in front of the camera.
Don't worry about it. You've earned it. You can do what you want.
After that speech, absolutely.
Seriously, my first day. I'm sorry. So my first day on the set, I did shit like this all the time. So I'm just gonna do this. Like this is me walking around the spot set all the time. It's
Casting
like,
shot.
hey everybody, see my body, see my shadow.
Oh, that's awesome. You can do an intro and an exit. Nice work.
Heck yeah.
All right, should we talk about some video games?
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
I have this titled as "Is Far Harbor Worth Buying?" I'm a massive Fallout 4 fan. I love playing it. You enjoy Fallout 4.
I do.
You gave it a 9 out of 10.
I
Is
did.
that right? Yeah. Rob Handlery, you also enjoyed Fallout 4. Is Far Harbor worth picking up? Peter first.
For $25, I would have a very hard time recommending it.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it goes deeper than should you buy it or not, because it depends on what you want out of it.
All right. So what are we talking about in terms of, let's get down to the boring digits. What are we talking with game length? With add-on length, DLC length.
I'd say it's fair to estimate between, say an average 15 hours if you're really trying to go out there and do a bunch of stuff, right? If you're only interested in sort of the main path of the story, 6 hours, I'd say around there. So it depends on what you want. If you want to seek out a lot of crazy mods like Rob, that's where you're going to buy a lot of your time.
All right, let's speak to some of that stuff then right off the bat. So how did you enjoy Far Harbor? What did you think of it? What was sort of most of the activities you were doing with your time with the game?
Yeah, I mean, I was making features, so I was kind of playing in the sense of new weapons. What are the new weapons, new gear? I was kind of investing in a little bit more of the side quests and exploration. There's a lot of cool areas to, every building has a story, which is still the same case, very Fallout-ish. But mainly the weapons. The weapons are, for the most part, fun. You got some cool new ones like a harpoon gun, which was surprising. You could, if you impaled someone in the head, I made a feature where I did not expect it, but sure enough, the head ripped off and impaled into a tree. That was a fun surprise. You get some other types of weapons. But yeah, having not actually finished the main storyline, this is where I think Peter was going to get at was, what do you like out of Fallout? Do you like exploring and just soaking in, having no real drive to maybe finish the main storyline, but kind of just explore it? And there's so many new buildings and such. In that case, I'd say go for it. But the main storyline, I got kind of burnt out on myself.
Peter, you had some problems with the story as well? Didn't really tickle your interest? I mean, Fallout, if anything, Fallout's main campaigns have always been a bit of a sore spot. Even Fallout 4's main campaign is kind of fine. It's the side quest stuff is usually a bit better. So the main sort of thread in this one, the main quest, you've got some issues with it without getting into too much into spoilery stuff, I guess.
Sure. I mean, let me at least say that for Fallout 4's main campaign, the primary storyline, I appreciated that. I appreciated the things that it did, and specifically the time and space it gave me to sort of figure out how I fit into that and how I want to influence it. Right. Far Harbor, it's this very quick procession of, okay, here's one group. Okay, now here's another group. And here's a third group. And here's a problem. And what do you think? What are you going to do about it? What's your choice? Huh? Hey. And, it even raises some philosophical questions about, I don't want to say anything, but it raises some philosophical questions that seem completely unearned because, one, they're illogical, and two, the sort of drama behind it kind of comes out of nowhere. And I felt like my character, the character I'm role-playing, was ill-equipped to address something like that in an instant. And yet here I was basically able to make a decision, yay or nay, that would influence my character's psyche completely.
Right.
And I just didn't feel like Far Harbor sort of earned the weight that it was offering me in
Right.
terms of drama. And
Was that because you were sort of being introduced to all these characters so quickly, and then
I'm okay with being introduced to them fast. That's fine. But it's sort of the actions they take and the way that they impart their identity and the role that they play onto you. It just felt like it was this sort of immediate delivery of, it wasn't just who they are, but what they stand for and how do you feel about that?
Yeah.
Without giving you the time to really feel it out. I mean, granted, you could go on side quests and prolong your decision, but the fact is that these questions are raised very soon after you meet these characters. And it's just kind of like, well, I didn't even have a chance to like take a second. I mean, you can tell them, hold on, I'll think about it.
I'll be back in a second.
Right. But these questions should come later. And that's unfortunate. But, to Rob's point, like I do appreciate the world. Like it's more Fallout's combat, more Fallout's exploration.
Is it a big area?
Crafting.
Is it
It's
like
pretty
fun
big.
Because I'm all about that exploration stuff,
Yeah.
so that's interesting to me.
I wouldn't call it huge. Like a lot of people I'm seeing write about the game are referring to it as this like massive thing. Like for DLC maybe, but
It's kind of odd because that's what my impression was. I mean, one of the main selling points was like Bethesda's biggest add-on to date,
Right.
landmass wise. And I found it pretty easy to get around, and you're exploring things pretty quickly. But one of my frustrations as well, and this even ties into like the fog nature of the island.
Right.
Everything has fog, and it kind of gets old, at least for me, pretty quick. Where
like I bought this new graphics card, assholes.
exactly, and we'll get into how it performs, I guess, a little bit later. But for an area that I'd like to hit say I climb the top of the highest peak.
Fog.
Like I like to see something different. I like that was cool about Fallout 4, right? Like you get these areas, like here's this. Now I'm even closer. Here's the blimp of the Brotherhood.
So the fog is just kind of ubiquitous. It's kind of all over.
It just gets pretty stale for
Right.
me, at least. And if you want to get
some
into
fun.
the performance,
Yeah, talk about some of that, because before we actually we had preview code which had some interesting frame rate issues. Did that stuff ever get resolved, or is
guess what? No, it didn't.
okay? There you go.
I'd say a little bit.
All right.
You're
But-
full of shit.
No, I would say that. I know. Well, I played the preview build wherever we had.
Yeah.
And it was unplayable.
It was like really bad, right?
It was like-
single digit frame.
10 frames.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe. Like this
What
is
were you
so
playing
this was this is for PS4.
Okay.
So this was this is strictly in the fog. And then when you got combat going on, good luck. Like it's
Oh, really?
it's so atrocious. Your footage I was looking at looks playable, but I would not be comfortable saying it's like
Did you play on PS4 or PC?
PS4, and I watched him play a little bit on PC, which he'll explain also kind of exhibited some optimization problems.
nowhere near as bad. I mean, I'd say like I have I played even on a 670 at home and then a 970 here in the office, and I've played this game before. It should be a solid 60. I've optimized it prior,
yeah.
and it would get downwards to about 30, maybe 45, strictly in the fog and combat situations in that fog.
It's weird because I remember there were some people who were having PS4 problems with the original. Remember Jeff, Giant Bomb was having some problems with the PS4 version of Fallout 4 proper, and like none of us did at all.
Yeah, I remember the lobby episode we talked about
Yeah.
that actually. Yeah.
So it was interesting, but it's funny that once again, I mean, Fallout 3 historically had problems on PlayStation as well. But yeah, it seems to be sort of a recurring problem with those guys.
Yeah, and it's really just because of the fog. I
Yeah.
mean, it's I'm assuming it's either physics-based or volumetric, fog, and whatever it is, it's causing that game to have to crunch more numbers, and it's a style choice, right? I mean, the fog could be there; it doesn't have to be so strong.
Yeah,
but
or even like
here we are.
I mean, I'm no developer, but I think it'd be aesthetically cooler if it came out only at night,
Right.
Or like you just had these moments, because I mean, I'm a big fan of that. Like the ideas of like, oh, you thought it was worse. Now, well, here comes the fog, like in waves. Like just to kind of keep a nice different pace. I don't know,
But it's just kind of
it's
always
just constant, and it's just kind of flat. Yeah.
All right, so we've talked a lot about the problems that are with this thing. I'm assuming it's not a complete train wreck.
No.
Is it fun? Like, I mean, the combat in Fallout is pretty great. Like, I happily spend hundreds of hours playing this game already because it's just fun to shoot stuff and exploring. So, I guess, are you enjoying that aspect of Far Harbor?
Yeah, dude, new environments, new monsters, new weapons. I mean, considering I like the combat, all of that sort of just gives me more to chew on, new things to see. It was great. Like, I like that part a lot.
What about yourself?
Yeah.
Ron?
Oh, there are a couple new monsters that were really surprising in how awesome they were. Like these mutant salamanders called gulpers. Oh gosh. Like they are just the fucking worst, dude. They you see them from afar and they come at you and they do this like snake slide. So you're like trying to get your crosshair fixed on these dudes. Yeah, and that's like, oh yeah, that's what you want. But they're super fun. Yeah, tons of new creatures. And again, the weapon I did a piece and then stumbled across this weapon that someone said in the comments. Oh, you didn't find the striker.
Right.
There's a bowling alley in the alley or on the island, and in it, again, this is like where Fallout for me is the best. Like my favorite memories are taken away from where someone got the freedom to make their own story in one environment, without anything else. Yeah. So it's a story. I don't know if I spoil it, but it's pretty cool. In the end of it, you get a bowling ball launcher.
Okay.
And have at it. It's super fun. So you're just firing, bowling balls at like dudes' heads.
Which you had done with the junk jet because you can put bowling balls in that as well, right?
Yeah. Does the character say strike?
No. Even better though. No, even better though.
This is a gutter ball.
No, once you get the kill, it's the sound effect of pins knocking down.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah. It's like there was like one guy here. That sound effect. Is there a speaker on this thing? But it's fun. Yeah.
All right, so I kind of feel like this would have been the perfect bit of DLC to play if you'd gotten the like cheap version of the season pass or something. Like a kind of
totally,
not to bring the whole money into whether it's worth it debate all over again, but
sometimes it is. I mean, this has been how many months now since we played Fallout?
Like half a year at least,
6 months, not counting Automatron stuff.
Right.
But yeah, like it's been a long time for some people. So throwing another $25 at something is, I think, a reasonable thing to consider.
Yeah. All right. When will the review be live on GameSpot?
Working on the video review right now. It'll be live tonight.
Okay, cool. So it may already be up by the time you watch this. If you're watching this on demand, if you're watching this live, make sure to come back to GameSpot.com later this evening for that review. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
I'm out of here.
You are out of here. You're both out of here, actually.
Sick.
Let's get some new folks in here. The white guy merry-go-round keeps on rotating. No, just for one, Tay. We've got you. Don't worry. We're here to talk about. I mean, it's surprising we've gone 40 minutes on today's show without talking about this game. I think we should be commended. Really, I think we've done a fantastic.
Think so?
I think so. I think we've done. A good
I was
job.
playing a little bit while you were doing lobby.
Oh, were you really?
Yeah.
I was playing a bit this morning. All right, let's jump into it. Overwatch. It's out. It's finally out. You can go buy. It is a game you can purchase. If you want, you can buy some weird loot crates. We bought $40 worth of loot crates. Didn't really get all that much out of it, to be completely honest. But that's a discussion for another day. Mike Mahardy, you were reviewing this for GameSpot. It's almost hilarious that you're reviewing this game, considering we've been playing it for what seems like an eternity.
Yeah.
4 months. When will the review be hitting GameSpot?
6 a.m. Pacific tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah. It's pretty much scored and everything. The review's ready. We just wanted to do our due diligence and wait like 48 hours. The servers are completely fine. Just like if something happens to go wrong in the next 12 hours, then we didn't want to risk that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's ready to go up.
So there's a review in progress up on the site at the moment. If you want to check it out, if you have any questions for Mike, please put them in the Twitch chat. I am keeping an eye on it. Before we get him involved, Eric Tay,
what's up?
How you doing, my friend?
Doing all right.
I always feel like you're a very good barometer for online shooters, whether or not they're going to be popular or not. Because, like, for instance, there are games that I enjoy online shooter-wise, such as Overwatch, or games that I do not enjoy, but end up being very popular, such as Destiny and The Division. Yes, thank you.
Fair enough.
So I guess what's your sort of take on this? We went to BlizzCon 2 years ago. We were the first preview GameSpot ever did of this was the two of us waxing lyrical about how much fun this game seemed to be already. Now that we're on the opposite side of the launch, what do you think about Overwatch? What do you think about its sort of lasting appeal, its mainstream appeal, how popular you think it's going to be?
Definitely still fun, even though like you said, we've been playing for a while. Now that you asked me that question, though, it's kind of interesting because I'm kind of wondering, like, will this at all have a Titanfall effect?
Right.
At all? Could you see yourself playing for 4 weeks, just like, yeah, Overwatch, and then like 4 weeks later, you're just like, yeah, Overwatch. You know what I mean? I'm not sure. Like, I think I'm still having fun. Everyone, my Battle.net list is full of people playing this game, so. It's been fortunate for me to be able to play with other people, which is one of the big reasons you play a online shooter, multiplayer online shooter, is because you have your friends playing. So if it has that Call of Duty effect, I could see myself playing for a while because, you hop on for an hour or so, like you're playing, I'm playing. It's like, hey, let's squad up or something. Let's play. then I could see myself playing for a while. But there are only so many modes right now. Challenge or the kind of the league type, more hardcore things not out yet. So it'll be interesting to see kind of like the landscape in a month. But I think definitely for now it's a fun game. Again, $40 at least on PC, non-Origin, I think is fair. The loot box thing's kind of weird, but it is what it is.
Yeah, they'll always get those whales. Mike, how are you feeling about it?
I like it a lot. So we put up the review in progress. Like you said, we had already played like 60, 70 hours of the game or something up there. It was a pretty definitive review in progress. I love the game. I think it's a fantastic game. The best part about it is you can play like this amount of time and still be finding new things with new characters that work well on this map or against that character or with this character. There's all these layers that keep revealing themselves the more you play with the game, and that's why it's so great. And despite how like flashy it is, it seems simple at first. There's only 4 game modes, 3 regular ones, and then a hybrid, 12 maps, 21 characters. It doesn't like essentially 21 classes, really complicated classes.
Yeah.
But then the more you play it, the more you realize how much there is beneath the surface. And that's why like I keep playing. It's just to see like how I can master this character, learn this one, figure out how I could have done something better in hindsight with this character. It's a really engaging learning process and it still hasn't stopped.
I mean, it's funny when we talk about the amount of content that's in this game, that always comes up in terms of review scores or in terms of asking price and whatnot. And I think about some of the games that like some of the first person shooters specifically that I would consider like in my top 5 of all time or whatever. Like I'm a huge FPS fan. FPS is definitely my favorite genre, and to be completely honest, I've been burnt out very much so on FPS games for about 5 years. I feel like they haven't really done much at all. I feel like the last great FPS was Half-Life 2, and we've sort of been, there's been some interesting ones like Titanfall I definitely liked, but we haven't had any like great new games, except maybe Team Fortress 2 is probably another good shout. And the thing that sort of like strikes me about when I think about those games is like when I think about all the time I spent playing Counter-Strike, and that was like 3 maps. Like there were more maps, but nobody played it. Nobody, Aztec came up every once in a while, but it was like you were playing Dust, and
Dust 2.
Office got rolled in, and Dust 2, and then some lunatic on Counter-Strike Source would play Compound, and then but that was fine, and there was enough like the moment-to-moment action was enough fun in its own right to get you to keep playing and to keep playing and to keep playing. And I've not felt that with an FPS game probably since then, since like 2004 with Counter-Strike Source and beyond. And this game just has it in spades. Like it has that, and then it also has these 21 characters, which, just like you said, it keeps unraveling itself. Like characters that I think I know how to use. I keep learning new things about them all the time. But yeah, I guess Eric, you're right. There are some games that they come and go, like your Titanfall, which was a wonderful game, but petered out. And then you've got games like the last big game that sort of rocked this office in Rocket League, which was a game that we just enjoyed it so much, and there was enough people playing it that we kept going back to it. And I guess probably another way in which that got longevity was because they just kept releasing content for it. What do you think about that in relation to the sort of longevity of Overwatch?
Again, like the only thing we know for sure is that there's going to be kind of like a more hardcore type tier of gameplay, right?
Yeah.
Like for your, esports type people or whoever. And so I think that the novelty and the fun of it's always going to keep people like us playing. I feel that way because it's like Rocket League. We have a lot of people to play with.
Yeah.
But I don't know what it's going to be like, again, in like a couple months like from now, because will all the characters be enough for you? Are these enough game modes? Do you still have enough friends playing? Is the drop off of friends playing stopping you from playing? Because like most people don't like solo queuing. I don't like solo queuing. So that was kind of like the one hurdle I was afraid of with this game, which is like if you guys all stop playing, I probably won't play. But I still think it's gonna do pretty well for now, because there's like I'm trying to think of like big games coming out like soon, and I don't think I have any too many coming out. So definitely going to be playing for a while, and I still have fun. And like I said, it's got that Call of Duty effect for me where it's like, okay, I know I'm going to hop on and play.
Yeah.
So like,
I mean, if there's anyone's good at keeping people playing a game for a long time as well, Blizzard are pretty good at it.
Yeah.
Some questions coming in. Philander is talking about his fear with multiplayer games when I guess you're stuck playing with people you don't know. What do you think about that, Mike? When you're playing this game, when you're reviewing it, are you constantly going into groups of other people? Do you play with pubs, and do you sort of consider that as part of the process?
Yeah, I mean, this game's really good of whether you're playing with people you know or whether you don't know. In the sense that if you're playing with people you know, the communication helps a lot, right? You could, if you're you're Zarya, say I've got my Graviton Surge alt ready, and your friend who's Hans will be like, oh, let's do it. Like launch Dragon Arrow into it. Name escapes me. Sorry. But it's also good about, like, there's so many accessible ways to play it, right? You can play as a Mercy if you're not like a typical shooter fan, and you don't want to like be berated by these hardcore players, right? You play as Winston, who doesn't require a ton of accuracy. You can just go right into the fray. You can play as if you played a lot of Titanfall and like that, you'll probably acclimate to Diva or someone. There's a lot of entry points into this game, but then it's really good at communicating how to play it in like really good, like visually, audio cues, like you hear it's high noon, you want to get out of there. Like you start to realize it after a while, after you die 3 times or after you hear that. This game's really good at communicating its ideas in a way that you can play it as from a hardcore perspective, but you can also come into it from an accessible standpoint that doesn't really sacrifice any substance in the process.
I will, like, just to slightly counter that, or just to play devil's advocate a little bit. I'm waiting for more of the people to start playing, of course, and 2, to kind of stop playing it from a deathmatch type of perspective, because there's a lot of people not doing what they're supposed to do, getting on the payload, getting to the checkpoint, defending these checkpoints. Like you said, even when we were playing together, we ran off one time and we almost lost because of that, right? And that's really frustrating. Or a good example was I was playing with Chris and maybe a few others in the office, and we happened to have a Widowmaker that was on offense, but it wasn't necessarily a good map necessarily for her. She was killing people, and he was like, oh yeah, I got 20 limbs. We're like, well, you're not helping capture the point, and you're not helping us hold the point, so maybe you want to switch. He's like, no, but I got 20 eliminations. I'm not changing. And it's like, well, okay.
I mean,
so that's the fear. That's like the slight fear.
I guess the fear I have is that, and I think this is probably why they're going to launch their, ranking sort of skirmish or mode or whatever they call it. It's a competitive mode they had in the beta, right? Like, because eventually you're going to have this situation, which is definitely what happened in Counter-Strike and other games, where there is this massive like skill floor where you've got, or probably watermark is better to describe it, where you've got a lot of people who are very, very good at the game. It's like when you try and play Gears of War after a month. It's like a nightmare because everyone knows how to do the road you run around the corner and to use the shotgun and all that. And this is a game, like many Blizzard games, that requires them to really split apart those two groups, to allow like the raiding groups in WoW to have their fun, and then to allow the adventurers who just want to walk around the Elven Forest for 40 levels do their own little thing as well. So I think that's probably what I'm interested in. But it is crazy that we're talking about this game in those like terms. We're not saying, is this a game, is it going to sell? We're talking about, is this going to be the next biggest first-person shooter for like 2 years?
Yeah.
Like that's, I feel like, where this exists.
To address your point, Tay, I completely agree, because there are people today, like even I still sometimes, maybe not so much anymore, but there were times when I caught myself, like you were just saying, it's like, oh, this isn't team deathmatch. What am I doing? Like I'm playing Zarya. I shouldn't be worrying about just like chasing this tracer endlessly. I think the game itself, the way it communicates those things, like, the post-match voting period where you kind of like recognize your teammates who, this Lucio healed this percentage of the team's total damage, this Mercy did the same, this Reinhardt absorbed this much with the shield. That way, I think that's a way to encourage people. Like there's not one way to play this game, but you should be focused on filling roles. And also, like, I think it does a good job of, when you're building your team, it says there's no tank heroes, like a red bar. Like, I think people who are willing to pay attention to this game and kind of suspend their habits, they'll find something they really like here that really encourages teamwork and encourages this nuanced approach, like as a team against like your opponent. But yeah, it will get frustrating after a while if competitive mode doesn't come along soon enough, and we're still playing with these people who are Widowmaker every time on offense, just worrying about eliminations and whatnot.
I mean, I think it says a lot that people are already kind of figuring it out, and the game's only been out a day. And like looking at the Twitch chat here, like it's literally just a group of people saying, "Oh, but this character does this, and this character does this, and this." Like they've managed to make a game where there's 21 different like individual classes, basically, where people like they're getting it. Like they're asking people to be smart. It's not like Call of Duty. It's not like what we've been fed for so long. Like even games like Halo, where it's just like just shoot the dude. Like. They're actually asking you to use your goddamn brain for once. And that's, I think, why I want this game to be successful, because it's a thinking person's shooter, which for years we were being told was not the way to get the mainstream audience to play it.
Yeah. A shooter doesn't always have to be just about shooting, like we've kind of been conditioned to believe lately. That's why I like old school Battlefield games. That's why I'm excited for Battlefield 1. It's about this substance that you find, like these things that you talk about after. Be like, remember when, Rob and I flew that biplane in and I was hosing a few like them in a dogfight? And this game hasn't even come out yet. It's a tangent. but Overwatch, like it's good about, Junkrat's really good about closing off these choke points and kind of trapping people when they come around. You know, Winston can just disrupt this objective by jumping in with his ult and raging, and he might get down, but he's going to buy time for Zarya to literally just stand next to this payload, so we have a few extra minutes for everybody else to get up to the checkpoint. I think the way that the game communicates to you visually and in its user interface with the voting period and the actual team building and the audio cues and the way it actually punishes you for not playing the character well.
Right,
not
yeah.
in like a you're a casual player. What are you doing? It's more of kind of nudging you in the right direction, and I think it assumes you're intelligent, which is pretty special for a shooter.
Right.
For games in general, it's pretty special, which is sad to say. But I think this game communicates itself well enough that more and more people will quickly get on board with what it's trying to do.
It's going to be very interesting to have a chat about this 6 months from now. I'm very much looking forward to it. Mike, when is the review going up again?
6 a.m. Pacific tomorrow, which is the 26th. I
Cool.
have no idea.
It'll be, yeah. This video may be live by then or not. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
But yeah, you can check out our review on GameSpot.com right then. All right, we're not done talking about Overwatch. I want to have a little chin wag about. I said that because you're here.
Wait, what was the other one? Donkey? You said
Donkeys.
something.
Okay,
Donkey
so-
years of first-person
It
shooters.
was Donkey's years, which
That's
is
just-
yeah, because I
That
didn't.
doesn't make it any better. That's
Because
just
I
plural.
I thought somebody said donkey ears, donkey's ears, and for some reason my brain couldn't parse that it was donkey's ears, not donkey's ears. Yeah, donkey's ears. I
That's
didn't.
fine.
crazy
it's like a
Irish
bad
people.
time, right? I'm
No,
assuming. That's a
donkey's
good
ears
time?
is just a long time.
Oh,
the
okay.
halcyon days.
The halcyon
I
days.
just thought that was-
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
that was
Helicon days.
poor day.
I used to say for
The Holocron days.
what's that called? Synecdoche? Is that the place?
The movie is like Synecdoche. Well, the real town in New York is Schenectady.
Schenectady, and the movie's called Synecdoche. Is it?
Well,
It's a play on words.
It's Synecdoche or something.
So that's the thing. I used to, when I lived in Ireland, I don't have a clue about this place in New York, so I called it Synecdoche, New York. I had it on
All right.
DVD.
That'd be a really great sign to see on the highway. We might as well pull off there, find a gas station. We won't get murdered or anything.
Anyway, yeah, the chat's full of them now. Chalk and cheese, donkey's ears. Yeah. All the idioms I've had to leave behind, or apparently haven't. Anyway, let's not talk
It's
about.
endearing.
Let's get back to the chinwag.
Yeah, we're gonna have a
the
nice
moment.
old chinwag right now. Let's have a little chat. I mean, we've been putting up all these Overwatch hero videos for the past week or so. Shout out to everyone who's been helping put that together. Chris Waters, Mary Kish, Jean-Luc in the back helping me edit them as well. Good times. But let's talk about, I guess, our favorite characters between the three of us. What are the characters that have spoken to us? Maybe a character that you didn't really like originally, but you sort of grown to love. Mike Mahardy, you first of all. Well, who do you want to get the ball rolling with?
The Crushing Russian, dude. As I just made
Zarya?
up. Yeah, she's my favorite character.
She's real difficult to learn.
Yeah, she's a blend of a lot of different roles. She's like a support role kind of by projecting shields on other people and herself. But then you have to consider the fact that you're mainly doing that not just to shield people because they're pretty quick. They dissipate after like only a few seconds, but that's mainly to buff her Tesla cannon's damage, which that itself is also super different in how you can use it because it's a close range, like just concentrated laser, which if you and someone next to you are both taking damage with shields, that thing's going to be pretty powerful.
Right.
But it's also a grenade launcher that has it's less of an arc than like Junkrat's grenade launcher. Not as powerful as Junkrat's grenade launcher, or it's about as powerful, but it's not as high fire rate. So then you have that to consider, but then you also have her Graviton Surge, which is probably my favorite ult because
it's devastating if you can pull it off.
It's not good by itself. I mean, it can be if there's like two people and then you start grenade launching if they don't know what's going on because they're not defenseless. They can still shoot you, and do some of their abilities. But
most of the time, I find they just freak out.
Yeah,
they're
and
They
they
don't
just
know what's
start
going on.
like
Like
hosing
everyone,
the air.
it's okay. You can still do stuff.
But like I said, if you use Hanzo's ult to just shoot the arrow straight into them, both dragons tear them apart. If Pharah's just normal rocket launcher against them is great. Junkrat just launching the grenades into it. She's such a weird blend of these different roles that every time I play, I think about her on these different layers, and especially like when you consider the map and how your team composition and your opponent's composition factors into it. I don't know. I play her differently every time, and it's really fun.
That's awesome. Tell you what about yourself. Who do you warm to on the battlefield of Overwatch?
Gotta go May all day.
Mayday.
May all day. She's a fun one. She does so many things, and I just gravitate to characters that can kind of support and heal themselves as well. So like you don't always have to depend on the healer. So she can ice block. She doesn't take damage. She heals herself. On top of that, you can technically use that to block off shots. Like if there's a high noon, if you want to get really fancy, it's like, all right, ice block, hide behind me because he can't high noon you.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. And then you got the wall she can make to, either kind of move around to higher grounds, or just to kind of mess with the other team. You wall them off, you block them off. I've blocked like a Junkrat tire before. I've blocked a Diva charging in before. It's just like, nah, you're not gonna buy that. Or like if you
It's
get
like shutting it down.
yeah, exactly. Or you can really use it to split a team. Sometimes just like get the healer, like trap them. And both of her, her primary ability on her gun and her secondary ability on her gun are both amazing. The first one's just kind of like a, like a little blow dryer type effect, but with ice, it's like, all right, you're frozen. Now I get to just right click icicle you in the head, and you're probably dead.
It's like
or punch you.
surprisingly powerful.
Yeah.
Like you can destroy a Reinhardt pretty good with that.
It's so annoying to play against that too, right?
It's so frustrating because the minute she starts doing it, you're just like running away.
I hate when people play Mei well against me. It's the most infuriating thing.
And then her like icicle is like good to finish people off that you freeze because like easy headshot, or it's good for like midish, like almost semi long range. Like I've tried to out snipe a Widowmaker, even though it's like not a good idea, but it's kind of fun to try. Yeah. And her ult's another like kind of like fun wombo combo type thing where it's really good for stopping payloads or like like really controlling a capture point, because when you throw it, it's like that whole like radius is going to be frozen.
Yeah.
You don't want to be in that. So then it's like, well, they're not going to come here, or
totally
if they do,
off,
your whole team gets to just, it's free pickings at that point. They're all frozen. Like, great.
You can combo that with the wall in some interesting situations as well.
Yeah.
Just like block their exit and then dump it on them in the middle. Speaking of Widowmakers, man, I love Widowmakers so much. Like I'm such a huge Team Fortress. Like if you were to, they give you the stats of like how long you played each character in Team Fortress 2. Yeah. My sniper is just like all the way up here. And what I loved about him with Overwatch is that sniper had two different weapons. He had the straight up like sniper rifle, but he also had the crossbow, which is basically what Hanzo is. So Hanzo's good fun as well. But man, Widowmaker's just like so much fun because I just think there's something about it because there's always these big fracas, and because there's these long lanes and you're essentially watching a lot of people having fights pretty far away, you can like just dispense so much sadness on an opposition team by having a good Widowmaker, by just like getting headshots, by taking out turrets, by like having them constantly worried where they are all the time, especially if their other team doesn't have a sniper who's either cleaning up your Widowmaker or giving them like the sort of infrared sight. She's just so powerful if you can pull it off right. You can get into interesting positions. The grappling hook allows you to like bail out of places real quick if you need to. You can change where you are all the time. The ability to like charge up the shot. I mean, charging up the shot and getting a headshot it's just like the most satisfying thing ever. And then just popping away at people when you've got like 50% charge just to knock their health down. She's just like, part of me feels like in the right hands, a Widowmaker can win a game. Like, just
definitely
destroy people. Like we had some interesting games last night where I felt like I was like doing some good widow making. Where I was like one game where I was 86% of the game on fire or something. And it was only because these folks didn't know what to do, right? And the only counter I feel that's really good against her is either a really good Pharah who's able to flank and dump down some shots, or an opposition Widowmaker. And then it becomes like Counter-Strike because you're like having this headshot hunt, right? Where you're like, I need to get the headshot because you're going to get it. I think she's absolutely fantastic.
I've been switching to Reaper to counter her lately.
All right.
And I'm not the best Reaper player. Tay, I think you're the more experienced Reaper player. But yeah, just warping up next to her is the most satisfying thing. And if you do it right, she's not going to see like you come from like behind cover right up next to her and you just are the shotgun's pointed at her head right there. Yeah, that's like figuring out the counters in this game is so fun too. Because like Pharah is tough. Really tough. You need some skill to take down Pharah in the air for most characters. But yeah, I don't know. Like McCree's another character. He's probably my second favorite main.
Yeah, what do you like about him?
He's just a dirty player, and I love that. Like once you figure out the loop between, not that it's the same loop every time, because I think that almost falls into a trap of being okay. Flashbang, fan the hammer, dodge, automatic reload, fan the hammer. Yeah. Maybe die or walk away. But if you do it right, you know when to just use the primary single shot, which is really precise. And I think they nerfed it since the first early access because it was pretty...
the single shot? Yeah, it was like too far. I think the range got a little nerfed because it was like the straight up Deagle Counter-Strike.
Totally. I mean, like we were talking to Jeff Kaplan about it. He said that at one stage McCree was able to, he was basically long range, mid range, and short range.
Yeah.
And it's funny you say Counter-Strike Deagle because the gun is actually modeled after the Colt in Half-Life 1.
Oh.
Do you remember
man.
that? Do you remember
Yeah,
that
yeah,
Desert
yeah.
Eagle, that Colt Python, I think it was?
Cobra? No, Python.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
It's and it has that same kickback as well, which is such a great feeling. You're like playing 1998 Half-Life,
Yeah.
blowing people up with this thing.
That was the best thing. And well, also you have his Deadeye, which
Right.
you're weird. I showed you the highlight this morning. I was
Yeah.
pretty proud of it. What map was that? Was it Dorado maybe, or it was the neutral control point mode? But I walked up the stairs, and usually you want to start Deadeye from pretty far away because you're vulnerable as hell. He doesn't have much health to begin with, and he's moves slowly. But if you time Deadeye right and you come around the corner, and I saw 3 people locked on because I was pretty close, killed those 3, came around the corner, Soldier 76 came out of the control zone in overtime, flashbang him, fan the hammer, we like pretty much won. Like that's that kind of loop with him that I love. But he's still you have to be practice with him, right? Because he's really vulnerable and you need to know the timing and when to use primary, when to fan the hammer. Because if you don't have that dodge roll ready, the reloads like the reloading the 6, snapping the chamber back in. Yeah, he just feels awesome.
And that's the same reason I love Farah, because it's a similar kind of thing where you can very easily get killed very quickly with her if you don't protect yourselves from like turrets and Widowmakers. But apart from that, if you can like get a handle on them and you know where not to jump in the air like super early, you can just like rain death on people all the time. It's like getting above groups of people when they're fighting each other and just landing rockets down, like flanking Widowmakers and taking them out. Taking out turrets from miles away because your rockets are so powerful and they're so far away that you can just like, I don't know, she's able to control long range people. And then also like my favorite part in this map we're showing now, when you can get inside of that area or inside of any of these areas and fly up into the air inside of the control point and just kill people. You're just jumping up, hovering, and then jumping up, hovering, and just rockets and rockets and rockets. And like people don't have an answer for it. I mean, the only answer is either a decent sniper or a turret. So it's so much fun. What about you, Eric?
It is a thing of beauty. I watched you playing this morning. I was like, oh, okay, I got to steal some of these maneuvers because like you know you can rocket jump and hover, but like I watch you play and it's like, oh, this is like a whole different animal. But I'm gonna name a character that I didn't think I would like. Okay. But then I think I'm starting to like. And I was even more jealous today when you got the I think it was like the Ifrit Zenyatta skin because
Zenyatta.
I got that at the end of beta and I was like, oh, I gotta play him now that I have that skin, right? Like, and I think that's part of the hook of the skins is right. Like you get another character, it kind of makes you want to play that character because like, oh, that looks really cool, I should try it, and you wouldn't think to play it anyways. Totally. I didn't think I like him. He's pretty low health. He's like 75 health and like 75 shield. Yeah. But his Discord orb, which is basically a debuff on the opposing enemies, like it just makes them like nothing. It's like, oh, you're a Reinhardt? Not really, not anymore.
It's armor, right?
Yeah, it's armor. But he's deceptively strong, I think, like offensively too, because he can like his orbs can go pretty far. I like outsniped the Widowmaker. I'm guessing she was bad, but like with Zenyatta.
I mean, we had a run on the live stream earlier today where Chris played Zenyatta, and you were playing with him actually. You were Reinhardt in that map, and he just destroyed everyone. I've never seen anything like. I didn't realize that this guy was so. He's the most like offensive support character by a mile. He was destroying everyone. He was debuffing everyone and then just like pounding those balls. Yeah. And I didn't realize, the distance. Yeah, pound those balls, man. I didn't realize the distance you get on those things. Like he was doing that.
He can get, it's like pretty long range.
Yeah.
And so like he's pretty vulnerable when you get up close to him, but his best like kind of maneuver is his right click. He basically charges like 5 balls and then he just lets it all rip.
So you can like take out turrets with that and everything.
Yeah, so you just like kind of queue it up, especially like if a Widowmaker's got the infrared, you kind of queue it up before you round the corner. Yeah, surprise.
Boom, totally, yeah. Because she hasn't got that much health either. If you
and his ult's just amazing because like you have to respect it. Like when he's ulting, it's like, okay, I guess the whole team's just gonna get healed for like a lot, and they're gonna have this control point, and we don't know what to do. I think Chris had the best like scenario where it's like the Reinhardt just kind of like pins him away, but like you don't take damage, but like that takes the heal away from the rest of it. But that's a crazy.
The only
counter.
other thing I could think is a concussion blast with Farah, just to like nail,
punt him off.
Yeah. But that doesn't
like
even
Lucio coming in,
right?
Or something.
Lucio's great. Yeah,
because Lucio, if he's healing everybody, he not when he drops the beat, but when he does the
let's break
raise
it down.
the roof.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Or whatever it's called. He's vulnerable. You can still kill him while he's doing that. Same with Mercy. You can kill her whenever.
Right.
You just have to say, shit, they're gonna be healed. So you have to do something concussive to get him out of there.
Yeah.
There you go. Overwatch. That's some of our favorite characters. Let us know what yours are in the comments below. I mean, that's the most exciting thing about this game is that like everyone's got a different one, and it's not just based on some stupid aesthetic thing, or we're not like forcing it. It's like it's a genuinely just these characters are just so well created, like both in terms of how they look, but also just gameplay wise, so unique.
Like each of us here and most people playing the game probably look at Overwatch completely differently because
Right,
they
totally.
have different favorite characters. Like the game looks so much different from a Widowmaker's perspective than it does from a Winston. That's why the game
I play
is so...
Pharah and Widowmaker. I'm basically playing Team Fortress. I'm a soldier or the sniper. Like I'm playing the same people I've always played in video games. I'm playing Quake and I'm playing Counter-Strike. Like it's crazy.
I think too the reason why it's kind of like you have memories too. I think like there are like not even just play the games, but you have all these memorable scenarios of like, okay, you're gonna remember that high noon you did, right?
Yeah.
Like for a while now. And I think as long as it keeps creating these memories, it makes it like even a more long-lasting game because you always like those are things you want to talk about. Like, oh yeah, it was me and I did this, and that's kind of like what makes this game fun. It's like every day something different can happen, but you'll remember that and it'll be like, oh, that was awesome.
Yeah. Crazy stuff. It's interesting. It's interesting talking about it today, and it has been interesting seeing like public reaction unfold over the past couple of weeks with the beta as well, the open beta. It's going to be very interesting to look in 6 months' time, especially when we're looking at Game of the Year stuff to see where this lands as well. Because, God damn it, it's been a good year, 2016.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about GameSpot's 20th, anniversary, and we've got videos and articles going up on the site all week about that. Like, we're doing all right. Like,
yeah, we thought 2015 was crazy.
2015
right? was already crazy.
That was like a new 2004. That was like picking a game of the year last year. It was a nightmare between Metal Gear Solid and Bloodborne and Rocket League and The Witcher. I mean, this year we've already had like Uncharted, Overwatch, fucking Doom, man.
Yeah,
how good was Doom? They made a good Doom game.
I know.
Like, what's going on? Have we all died? Is this like the afterlife? They made a good Doom game. id, of all people, made a good Doom game.
Yeah.
They haven't made a good game in a while.
I've played like 4 games this year where I'm like, this might be my game of the year.
Yeah.
And every time it's something else replaces it.
What else are you thinking? Was there any other?
For me, the ones up there, Dark Souls 3,
course.
XCOM 2,
Yeah.
The Witness, which is such an extremely different beast than all these ones we're talking about. Well, I guess they're all different in their own way, but yeah, this year's been really
Far Cry
good.
Primal was good fun.
The
Yeah,
Division.
that was a surprise.
The Division. Shut up about The Division. I mean,
Why?
Yeah, like there have been some. I mean, I feel like Quantum Break was. Some people enjoyed it. I wasn't a massive fan of it. Battleborn as well. I feel for those guys a bit. They dropped the price down to 40 yesterday. Hopefully to maybe get a couple more sales.
Yeah.
On the other side of that, but yeah, I mean, we've still got The Last Guardian, No Man's Sky. There's a Gears of War coming out this year.
Mankind
Battlefield.
Divided, if
Dishonored
that's your
2,
thing.
Battlefield 1. Yeah, what'd you say?
Mankind Divided, Deus
Right,
Ex.
of course.
Ex.
Yeah, God.
Maybe Infinite Warfare will blow all our faces off.
Could you imagine? I hope it
Really?
does. I
know,
really hope it does.
I'm not. I'm skeptical, but I hope it is.
Maybe,
Skeptical but hopeful.
Maybe it'll work out. It's that like kind of you don't have any expectations. You're like, it's probably gonna be all right. Maybe not so great. Oh wow.
Modern
when,
Warfare is coming back.
Yeah.
That's what I'm excited
Part
about.
of the bundle
Modern
though.
Warfare's coming
It's
back.
only part of the bundle though. It's not separate. At least not yet.
You know why he's part of the bundle?
To sell Infinite
You
Warfare.
ain't buying that game otherwise.
You don't think so?
Maybe. I'm hoping for it. I'm hoping for both of them. I think we're getting 2 interesting military shooters.
With E3 rather.
But the expectation bar is low.
Civ 6?
You got to say that.
Sorry,
Civilization
I'm
6.
just thinking
God, the
through.
amount of strategy games that come out this year
I
as
have
well.
a Civ 6 preview going up tomorrow. I played 60 turns of it.
60, what was that, 400 hours?
No, that's like it's like an hour.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not that long.
For like Civ 5, that could be like half an hour the more you play it. But Civ 6, there's a little different discussion, but there's a lot new with it. You should check that out
Yeah.
if you like Civilization games or strategy games.
Is Mafia 3 coming out this year?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
Man, video games doing all right, as it turns out. Let's have a little break for a couple of weeks before E3. How about that?
Yeah.
19 days
man,
until the
19
big
days.
electronic triple.
Overwatch, Rocket League for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Overwatch and Rocket League for the next little while. Thank you so much for hanging out today. Really appreciate it. Everyone in the back. Jean-Luc Seipke, Miss Mary Kish. Who else is back there? Just them, because you're right here today, Eric Tay.
So
Oh, KVO, of course. He's hanging
KVO
out in the
still
back.
there.
Go hang out with him before he shoots off to Belgium. Richard Lee, of course, on the camera right there. Thanks to everyone. There you go. Hey, look, it's Kevin hanging out. Kevin, we're still not paying you. Still not paying
getting
you. No.
nothing.
No, nada. We're not paying. We're going to give him euros now. That's what he gets. Euros.
Aren't the Euros more strong though?
More strong. Eric Tay, Chief Economic Analyst. Damn it.
Got him.
Damn it.
You can't make a joke and then screw it up.
All right, we're done. Thank you so much, everyone, for hanging out in the Twitch chat. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening to this on your iPad. The three of you listening to this on your iPad. Thank you so much. Yeah, okay, we're gone. Thank you. Adios. Bye-bye. See you next week. Tuesday. Overwatch review coming soon. Bye.